Hi, Nursing 230. It's Amanda with a brief lecture on promoting professional nursing practice, licensure, and liability. I'm having a little trouble because this headset is making an echo, so my voice sounds really weird. So I'm sorry if I sound strange. So, to prepare for this lecture, you have read chapter 22 in our textbook, and you've read the two Brois articles and the one Croak article that the links where the links were provided to you on Blackboard. So we're just going to touch on some basic principles of licensure, liability, and law. And I'm going to give you some examples of true cases that were investigated by the Board of Nursing. So there's only a few slides, and we're basically just reviewing concepts that you read about. So, first of all, the definition of law, which you'll find on page 472. I'm not going to read this to you, and hopefully, at this point in your education, you understand the basic definition of law. What does nurse accountability have to do with nursing practice, right? So, what does NPA mean? You know that already. So, the Nurse Practice Act is what defines our scope of practice. However, it's also what we are legally accountable for, right? All of our actions in our practice. So, this was a little confusing on the last quiz because the the word practice, Act defines our scope of practice, but yes, it is true that we are legally accountable for our actions. Does that make sense? And then the last bullet, we must follow the standards of practice defined by whom? The ANA, right? So this slide is just demonstrating for you the different types of law. This is not a class on law, but what you can see here is that under civil law is tort law, and tort law is basically what most it's getting late. Liability cases fall under in nursing. So we'll see that on the next slide. Tort law is different than criminal law, which you can see there, and that's you'll see here. Criminal law is harmful to society. So, for instance, traffic violations, theft, arson, harming somebody. But tort law is what usually happens when nursing is accused of some sort of wrongdoing, right? So that's negligence or malpractice. So, and then here we're just talking about the difference between unintentional versus intentional, which again seems really straightforward to me. But, an example would be you're too busy to turn a patient. So you neglected to turn a patient because you were so busy. That was unintentional. Whereas if you were intentionally withholding a pain medication or giving the wrong medication to a patient, like somebody we know in the book The Good Nurse, I don't know, that this seems very straightforward to me. So when we talk about negligence in relation to nursing practice, this definition is one you want to put a star next to. So, failing to provide the care that a reasonable person would provide in similar circumstances. Now, I feel like I described this once before, but basically, this is a wonderful statement that protects many nurses, right? So if you have a busy night shift where you have 6 patients and one patient is calling for you to help them walk to the bathroom, the next patient wants their tea heated up, and then the third patient is saying they can't breathe. If you're in helping the patient who can't breathe, which is your highest priority, and the patient who's trying to walk to the bathroom but couldn't wait because you couldn't get there in time and they end up falling, and then they sue you or the family reports you for negligence, um, you you would be reviewed by the hospital and of course by the board of nursing. And in most cases like that, um, you would it would fall under failing to provide the care that a reasonable person would provide in similar circumstances. So any reasonable person, nurse, would do the exact same thing. They'd be with the patient who's having trouble breathing or choking because that's life-threatening. So you would be innocent. Okay. So, in addition, in order to prove that you are liable for negligence, you need to, well, in a court of law, 4 elements would need to be established, right? So that it was actually your duty to walk that patient to the bathroom that fell, that there was a breach in your duty, that there was harm caused to the patient, and that you were the one who actually were responsible for causing the harm. So malpractice is different than, well, the same but different than negligence, because malpractice is a specific type of negligence where there is definitely harm caused to the patient. So, for example, if you're a nurse that is working under her scope of practice but does not administer the injection correctly, for example, if it's intramuscular and you are in the wrong area and you go too deep, or you hit a nerve and inject the medication into the nerve, and the patient then has paralysis or nerve pain or something like that, then you could what's the word? Not convicted, but be oh, it's 9 o'clock at night. I'm sorry, guys. Accused. There's the word. And the same sort of thing would need to happen. There would need to be proven the fact that the 4 elements of negligence. Whew, okay, so fraud, again, is a very straightforward concept. I think you probably understand what fraud means, but in the realm of healthcare, right? So, what can that mean? It could be misrepresenting yourself. I was just reading some of the Board of Nursing. Oh dear. Next time I'll do this in the morning. The Board of Nursing reports, and someone used their brother's identification to get a nursing license, right? So that's intentional misrepresentation, right? Another example would be receiving gifts or payments as a nurse in the hospital. You're not allowed to receive any gifts or bribes, or you get better care, or someone is paying you to give them or their family member better care, or if you document something falsely, like you gave a medication you didn't actually give it, you brought it home to give to your dog or something. That's examples of fraud. So, what can actually happen? So, typically you will something will be noticed, right? Assessed, whether it's a family member noticing, a peer, a manager, or some sort of negative outcome happens, right? And it's written up on some sort of incident report. It's brought to your manager, it might be brought to your director of nursing, and your facility tries to figure out the best course of action. But oftentimes it ends up being a call to the Board of Nursing, where the Board of Nursing reviews the facts, and we're going to look at some of those right now.